My name is Laura Mitchell. I'm 34 years old, and for over a month, my husband made sure I never missed a single dose of my heart medication. He picked it up from the pharmacy. He kept the bottle beside the bed. Every night, he would hand me a pill, wait until I swallowed it, and watch me like he was protecting me from something. But my condition wasn't improving. It was getting worse in a way my doctor couldn't explain. My pulse kept slipping out of rhythm. My chest felt heavier every day. And the strangest part was, all of my test results said I should have been stable. So one afternoon, when he wasn't home, I called my pharmacy just to double-check something small. And what they told me didn't make sense. According to their records, I had picked up a full refill 2 weeks earlier. But I hadn't, because the only person who had touched my medication was my husband. And when I finally opened the bottle and looked closely at the pills inside, I realized something that made my hands start shaking. They looked almost identical, same size, same shape, but the imprint was wrong. And in that moment, I understood something I wish I never had to. The man who had been taking care of me every night wasn't trying to keep me alive. He was making sure no one else noticed I was slowly dying. It's strange how quickly you can get used to being taken care of when your body starts failing you. Because at first, I didn't see anything unusual in the way Daniel stepped in. It actually felt like relief, like someone had quietly taken a weight off my chest that I didn't realize I was struggling to carry. And my diagnosis wasn't minor. It was a form of cardiac arrhythmia my doctor had explained in careful, serious language, the kind that doesn't always feel dangerous until it suddenly is. The kind that stays under control only if you stay consistent with your medication. Same dose, same time, no gaps, no guessing. And I had been strict about that in the beginning. I set alarms, I tracked every refill. I even double-checked the pill imprint against the pharmacy sheet they gave me, because that's what you do when your heart doesn't always cooperate. You don't take chances. But over time, as the fatigue settled in, not dramatic, not obvious, just a constant heaviness behind everything I did, Daniel started helping more. At first, it was small things, picking up my prescription on his way home from work, organizing the bottles so I wouldn't mix anything up, reminding me when I looked too tired to keep track of time. And none of that felt wrong. It felt like support, like partnership, like the kind of care people talk about when they say marriage means not facing things alone. And slowly, without a clear moment where it shifted, he became part of the routine itself, the one who kept the bottle by the bed, the one who handed me the pill with a glass of water each night, the one who would sit there for a few extra seconds just to make sure I actually swallowed it. And I didn't question it, because when you're dealing with something unpredictable inside your own body, you hold on to anything that feels steady, anything that makes the situation feel controlled. And for a while, everything looked controlled. My follow-ups were normal. My cardiologist said my numbers were stable. Nothing alarming, nothing urgent, just stay consistent. And I was. Or at least I believed I was, because every night I took exactly what I was given. But then something started to feel off. Not all at once, not in a way that made me panic, just small things that didn't line up. My heart would skip in a way that felt sharper than before. Not frequent, but noticeable, like a missed step on stairs. My energy dips lower than it should have, even on days when I had rested. And there was this quiet confusion that started building in the back of my mind, because the symptoms didn't match what my doctor had told me to expect if I was staying consistent. And I remember one morning standing in the kitchen, holding my phone, staring at the patient portal where my last results still showed everything within range, and thinking something very simple that I couldn't explain away anymore. If everything is normal on paper, then why do I feel like I'm slowly getting worse? And that question didn't leave. It stayed with me, growing just enough each day to make me pay closer attention, not to my body, but to the routine around it. The way the bottle was always in the same place, the way Daniel never forgot, not once, not even on nights when he came home late or looked exhausted. The way he would sometimes watch me just a little longer than necessary, not smiling, not worried, just focused. And the first time that actually unsettled me wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, the kind of moment that feels small until you realize later it wasn't. Because that afternoon, when he left earlier than usual and I went to take the pill myself, I hesitated before opening the bottle. Not because I thought something was wrong, but because for the first time in weeks, I hadn't looked closely at them. And when I poured one into my hand and turned it under the light, everything about it looked right, until it didn't. The shape matched, the color was close, but the imprint was wrong. And in that moment, I understood something I wish I never had to. The man who had been taking care of me every night wasn't trying to keep me alive. He was making sure no one else noticed I was slowly dying. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe. I didn't confront Daniel that night. Not because I wasn't scared, but because I needed to be absolutely certain before I let that fear turn into something real. Because once you say something like that out loud, once you accuse the person you trust of something like this, there's no going back. So instead, I did what my doctor had trained me to do from the beginning. I documented everything. I took a photo of the pill in my hand, zoomed in on the imprint, compared it side by side with the official reference from the pharmacy website. And the difference wasn't a variation. It wasn't a generic brand switch. It was a completely different identifier. And that was the moment the situation stopped being confusing and started becoming controlled, just not by me. So the next morning, instead of calling Daniel, instead of reacting, I called the pharmacy directly. I gave them my name, my prescription number, and asked a simple question that I already felt the answer to. What exactly was dispensed in my last refill? And when the pharmacist read it back to me, the medication name, the manufacturer, even the imprint code, it didn't match what I had in my hand, not even close. And I asked one more question, the one that made my stomach tighten before he even answered. Who picked it up? And he didn't hesitate. Your husband, Daniel Mitchell, signed for it 12 days ago. And I thanked him, ended the call, and sat there for a long time without moving, because that confirmed two things at once. The pharmacy had given the correct medication, and the pills in my bottle were not what had been dispensed, which meant they had been replaced somewhere between the pharmacy counter and my bedside table, and there was only one person in that space. And still, I didn't react, because reacting without proof would only warn him. So I took one of the pills, sealed it in a small plastic bag, and that afternoon I called my cardiologist's office and told them I needed the medication verified. Not reviewed, not discussed, verified. And when I brought it in, I didn't explain everything. I just asked them to confirm whether what I was taking matched what had been prescribed. And they took it seriously enough to send it for proper analysis. Not something immediate, not something casual. It took a few days. Days where I continued everything exactly the same routine, the same quiet acceptance, letting Daniel bring the pills, letting him watch me swallow them, even though I had already started hiding them instead, slipping them under my tongue and discarding them later, because I didn't know how far this went. I didn't know what he was expecting to happen. And those days stretched in a way that felt unnatural, because every normal moment suddenly had something underneath it. Every conversation, every glance, every time he checked on me. And when the call finally came from my doctor's office, I already knew what they were going to say, but hearing it still changed something in a way I wasn't prepared for. The sample contained no active cardiac medication at all. None, just inert compounds, something designed to look identical without doing anything. And that result didn't leave room for misunderstanding. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a pharmacy error. It was deliberate, repeated, and controlled. And that's when I stopped looking at this as a possibility and started looking at it as a plan. And once you see it that way, you start asking different questions, not just what happened, but why.
And I didn't have to look far for that, because later that night, while Daniel was in the shower, I opened the shared documents folder we rarely used, the one connected to our finances. And there it was, not hidden, not encrypted, just filed under policy documents. A life insurance policy taken out 8 months earlier, before my diagnosis, with coverage high enough to change everything, and his name listed clearly as the sole beneficiary. And suddenly, the timeline didn't feel accidental anymore. It felt arranged, like every step had been placed in order long before I noticed anything was wrong. And when he came back into the room that night, holding the pill bottle the same way he always did, offering it to me with that same quiet assurance, I realized something that made everything colder than fear. Because I wasn't sitting next to someone who might be hurting me. I was sitting next to someone who had already decided to. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe.
I didn't stop the routine because by then I understood something he didn't. I knew what he was doing, and that changed the balance in a way he couldn't see. So instead of confronting him, I made sure I was no longer part of the outcome he was expecting. The next morning, I called my cardiologist again, not just to inform them, but to create a record. I explained everything clearly, the mismatch, the lab results, the pharmacy confirmation, and they didn't dismiss it. They escalated it, documented it, and helped me get an emergency verified refill directly through the hospital pharmacy, so there would be no gap, no question about what I was actually taking. And from that point on, every step I took was quiet, deliberate, and recorded. I picked up the real medication myself. I kept it separate, hidden in a place he never checked. And each night, when Daniel handed me the pill from his bottle, I continued the same routine he had built. I took it from his hand, brought it to my mouth, let him watch me swallow, and then later, when he wasn't looking, I replaced it with the real dose. Because I needed him to believe nothing had changed. I needed him to stay comfortable inside the version of reality he had created. And as my body slowly started stabilizing again, as the irregular beats became less frequent, as the weight in my chest eased just enough to think clearly, I began documenting everything else. Screenshots of the insurance policy, call logs from the pharmacy, timestamps from my doctor's office. And when I finally made the call to law enforcement, I didn't just have suspicion, I had a pattern, something that showed intent over time, not a single moment. And the investigation didn't happen overnight. It moved the way these things do, quietly at first. Questions asked in places he didn't expect, confirmations he didn't know were being made. And then one evening, it reached him, not with a warning, but with certainty. And I wasn't there when they first spoke to him, but I was there later when everything had already started to fall apart, when he was sitting across from me without the control he used to carry so easily. And for a moment, he didn't say anything. He just looked at me, not shocked, not confused, just measuring something he hadn't accounted for. And when he finally spoke, it wasn't an explanation. It wasn't even denial. It was quieter than that, like he was trying to understand where the plan had failed. And that was the moment something settled inside me. Not anger, not relief, something colder, because it confirmed what I had already realized. This wasn't desperation. It wasn't a mistake. It was something he had built slowly, carefully, step by step. And the only part he didn't plan for was me noticing before it was too late. And the life he thought he would step into without me never happened. Not because I fought him, not because I confronted him, but because I stayed just aware enough to step out of it before it closed. And the hardest part of all of it wasn't what he did. It was understanding how easily it had been hidden inside something that looked like care, how routine can become a cover, and how the person sitting closest to you, the one making sure you're okay, can also be the one quietly waiting for you not to be. If this story stayed with you, make sure you like and subscribe, because sometimes the most dangerous plans aren't the loud ones. They're the ones that look like love until the very end.